Yeah, Richard Allen, and I said I'm from Rhode Island during World War II. I left there in 42, 1942, and I never went back there to live. I was at the University of Rhode Island when the war broke out, and uh, three of us in the fraternity decided we wanted to go in the Navy. So we signed up with the Navy for naval cadet training, aviation cadet training, and we all passed the tests. We were fortunate at that time. We needed 2 years of college in order to get into the program, so we were all in our second year, so we needed to finish our year before we could go on active duty in the cadet program, which we did. That was in the summer of 42. We went to Boston and Squantum, Massachusetts for initial flight training. And that was prior to going to Pensacola. They call that pre-flight training. They did, but they learned there whether or not you would make a good pilot and that sort of thing. So, oh, my dad was he worked with Standard Oil Company in New York. They had a big refinery there in Rhode Island. He worked in the power plant there. Fortunately, he worked all the time during the Depression, so we didn't have too much difficulty during the Depression years. I had two sisters. We all went to school there. I wanted to go to college. I went to school, high school, and East Providence High School was there. I decided I wanted to be an engineer of some sort. Didn't know what at the time. You usually don't when you go into college anyway. It's kind of interesting. The Navy asked us to take civilian pilot training prior to going on active duty, so we did that in the spring of 42. We signed up for the civilian pilot training program, and each of us got our private pilot's license at the Rhode Island airport there. Well, back to the Navy, we went to Squantum, Massachusetts for preliminary training, and then we were shipped down by train down to Pensacola. And we went through the complete pilot's training program at Pensacola, and that was a very intense program because that was when the war was right at its highest in the beginning of everything was real serious. We didn't have much time off. We worked 7 days a week, trained 7 days a week. And we would have a little time to go in town, but that's about all. You would have your choice somewhat as to at least your preference of what type of training what type of airplane you wanted to fly, whether you wanted to be a fighter pilot or a torpedo pilot or a dive bomber or a patrol plane pilot, what have you. So I chose the fighter pilot and was able to get that. From Pensacola, we were shipped up to the Great Lakes, up to Glenview, Illinois, and there we did our first landings on a carrier. That was on the lake up there at Glenview. It was on the ship. They had rigged up a ferry boat with a landing deck on top of it. It was an old ferry boat, and but it served the purpose. We didn't fly fleet type aircraft. We were flying the SNJs then. That's the same airplane as the Army used, the Air Force used, the AT-6s. North American trainer. But we would fly those to make our landings aboard the carrier. We had to make, I think it was 12 landings in order to qualify as a carrier pilot. So we made our initial 12 landings up there on this converted, they called it a Wolverine, was the name of the ship they had converted to a carrier. And that was kind of scary. The first landings, I can remember getting out of the airplane, my knees were really shaking. But it was interesting. And from Glenview, Illinois, we were sent to Alameda, California. And there we were, there we were joining the squad. Actually, we went to Jacksonville, Florida, but we didn't do any flying there. And we were assigned to a squadron in Jacksonville, and that was out in Alameda, so we were sent to Alameda from Jacksonville. And there we met our fellow pilots in the squadron that we were going to fly in, and we flew out of Alameda quite a while. Then after we got organized and everyone was there and we had our aircraft, we moved down to Hollister. I think we were at Hollister about 2 months. It was that was interesting. We enjoyed Hollister. They still have the airfield there. We were the only ones there, just our squadron. We had complete control of the airfield, and we would fly out over Monterey Bay. They had a gunnery range set up out there where we would take a tow target off the airfield at Hollister, and with our SNJ, that was sort of a utility airplane. But we would they would tie these tow targets on the back end of the airplane, and you'd fly off and drag the tow target off the field, and then fly out over the ocean, and the other aircraft would fly down and fire at the tow target. They would color their bullets with different color. Each airplane would have a different color paint on the face of the bullets. They would paint them before we took off, so that you could tell who hit the target and who didn't hit the target by the color of the holes in the tow sleeve. Hollister was an interesting city at that time. We were the only military people anywhere near there, but we would set up our own shore patrol at night, so that if any of our sailors got in trouble in town, why we would be there to take care of them and bring them back. But it was an interesting experience. From Hollister, we went back to Alameda, and our ship joined us at Alameda for a short time anyway, and we went out to practice out in the ocean aboard our ship, practice landings, what have you. And we practiced aboard several other ships. We had some interesting times out there.